Hi, guys. You are watching or listening to the Shift Training Podcast,
where we discuss personal development. We talk about mental, physical, emotional, spiritual health, and just overall well-being.
And today we're going to be talking about when to grit and when to quit. So for those who are not familiar with the term grit, it means, grit your teeth and bear it. And I'm just kidding. It means, persisting, continuing to move forward when things are difficult. We already know what it means to quit, but we're going to go into detail about when you should continue to do something and when you should probably drop it. Vaughn, what do you think about that? Or can you bless us with some information on grit?
Grit. All right. So the first time I heard about grit is from Angela Duckworth. And if you haven't heard about his book, Grit, you should definitely read it.
Her book, Cynthia Duckworth.
Oh, that's right. Her book. And I definitely recommend it. For me, grit is your ability to push through the things that are challenging. So there's another book that I remember is called The Dip. So this one teaches you when to quit. But this idea of dip is that it's basically like a plateau. So once you started an activity or a task for a long period of time, then you're inevitably going to face that dip, that plateau. But that dip is what's going to make you grow. So for instance, for me, I'll use the example of dancing bachata. So at the beginning, I was having fun, and there was a time where I hit this obstacle where it's too painful because I feel so incompetent. I feel that rejection is causing me so much pain. So I quit. That's not the way to grit. That's the opposite of grit. So after that, I realized that I was running away from my fear, my challenges. And every time I sleep at night, I always remember that I was a quitter. It's not good. It's not good for your mental health. And as I avoid it, it starts to creep in on my different areas in my life. So I was remembering that I was a quitter. So one day, I decided I'm gonna go again, and with the push of Coach Law, I persevere. So when I started facing that fear, I went over that hump. I now feel much more confident in the dance floor.
He's smooth with it. He's very nice.
So you just gotta have patience. You need to have grit, and basically those two combined, you have determination.
Yeah, I think that's a great story. Thank you for telling them that, sharing that. Yeah, I think for grit is that it's determination. It's the willingness to persist even when it's difficult. And I think that's what it means to grit. And sometimes you can grit to the point of burnout, or you can grit somewhere where it's not per se fitting. And it's like, well, when do you know to quit? And I think one of the things that we recently talked about was timing. Like, there's a time where something's great or it's good, like if you start a new job or anything, like, oh, maybe like the first 30 or 60 days are like, oh, this is great. And then day 61, you're like, wait a minute. And then you get 15 days past that. And the next 15 days after the first 60 being great, next 15 are not so great. And you're like, well, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I should quit. Or maybe I should change paths or whatever. Like, it's only been 15 days. How about you match that? So for example, you spent 60 days of it being good. Why don't you have at least 60 days that suck? And then at least you're back equal. You're back even. You're back on even keel where you started. And if you were to quit then, would you still leave with something? Did you gain something? Did you learn something? What came from it? You know what I mean? Was it still net positive is how I like to view it. And, if it's still net positive and you go, okay, yeah, but I'm really not, this isn't it. Maybe then after you've given it some time, it's time to go. But I think that one of the things to consider is, we recently did a podcast about excuses versus grace, and excuses are beforehand. So if you didn't even give it a shot, you're probably making excuses to help justify your ability to flee or take the path of least resistance, leave discipline behind, which is what we talk about. And grace comes after the fact. So if you're going hard and you know what, you're going, and you feel there's no value, there's just no return. You're just chopping wood. You're going through the motions and it's draining everything from you. It's not doing anything for you. Right. Maybe it's time to give yourself a little grace and say, you know what? this ain't working. I thought I had a plan. This plan isn't working. I need to shift gears. And maybe you need to go ahead and let yourself fail at that. Give yourself permission to fail. I don't even think about it as quitting. You went through the motions and you failed. It didn't work out. Give yourself grace. Switch gears, do something new.
Right. Yeah, I think that timeline is important, just depending on the context, right? Or depending on what is the thing that you're doing. But throughout that 30 days or 60 days, but if all you felt was misery, then I believe that's time to quit. It's not for you. But if there's something that you feel joy doing it, but it's hard, then I think that's when you need to start doing being gritty.
Oh, you know what? This is good. So relevant to Jordan Peterson yesterday, right? So his rule of thumb, he was recommending this to kids, high school kids, like, should I go to college or should I do something else? And then he said, you know what? He gave that rule to them, but he said, actually, it's a good rule of thumb for everybody, everywhere. And I think this is awesome. But he said, you know, if you're going to not do the thing, you need to do something that's equally as difficult or more difficult. Make sure it's something meaningful or valuable to you, of course, but you don't quit something to do nothing. Don't quit to do nothing, because nothing is far worse than doing something, even if you don't like it.
I agree. I think that analogy it's really good.
So I think that if you're going to grit or quit, I think you should probably consider that. What is the alternative that you're going to do? Where else would you want to invest that much effort? You know, how much time, how much energy, how much resources? Like, where else would you put it?
Yeah. And another thing about that grit, going back to that subject, is that you will hit a plateau, you know, whatever it is that you're trying to get better at. But that plateau is a sign for you to really push, because it's testing you if you really want it.
That is a great point. Yeah. I think when you talk about hitting a plateau, like hitting a wall, versus like climbing up a hill and then you have a long way to go, like sometimes it's just that and then you just go up another hill. And that seems very, I feel like that's very mild or moderate. Like sometimes it works like that, but I don't consider that like when you really get to an obstacle. Because an obstacle is like you're going like this, you're going like this, a little plateau, and all of a sudden you have a vertical wall like this. And you need to either figure out how to go around that wall, through the wall, over the wall, and all of those are going to take more effort than the amount of effort you've been putting in here. You might need to back up, regress a little bit, build some momentum, and really get at it, or really get at it, or really get at it. You know, you really have to think about it. What's on the other side of that you want? Do you want it bad enough? There's something that really, really matters to you. You know, is that why you set out on this whole journey anyway? Be ashamed to leave without getting what you came for.
Yeah.
But you know, if you have to, you got to give up on what it is, then give up on what it is, or maybe find another way to get what you want.
Yeah. I think that's definitely true, that you have to get all of those, you know, ways, and it'll take more energy. It reminds me of, I don't know if you know Jimmy Choo.
Yeah.
Jimmy Choo. So according to that article that I've read, is that he was making shoes since he was 11, but his career did not take off until he was in his mid 30s. So I think that it's very important.
Serious grit.
Yeah, serious grit and determination, as we talked about it earlier.
And I don't know much about his story, but I think what makes it different is like, did he enjoy it?
He did. Most people, there are a lot of critics around him that this was in the 90s too, you know, like it's very difficult to make business, be a craftsman, and success is low.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's another point, is like, if you're enjoying what you're doing, it makes it easier for you to persist, to have that determination, to continue to grit. If you don't really have that passion, or you can't cultivate it, or you can't cultivate a desire, or you can't pull yourself, you can't have that compelling future that you're moving towards, it makes it harder to continue to grit. And that might also be a case for assessing, do I even have a compelling story? Can I craft one over here? And if for some reason you're trying your best to create a compelling story and it's just not happening, that might be another sign that it's time to go ahead and say, hey, this didn't work out. Time to pack it up, do something else. True. So, but key thing I think here for when to grit and when to quit is, don't quit until you try. Try first. Don't quit beforehand. Excuses in the trash. Give yourself grace after you fall. Yeah. Bonnie, you have anything else for me?
That's it for us.
Cool.
Where can we follow us, Coach Law?
You can follow us at Shift Own Your Life. at Shift Training on YouTube. And we'll be glad to hear from you. Send us an email, drop us a comment, anything like that. Anywhere we can be of service, we'd love to do so. Anything?
Other than that, have a great day.
All right. Peace.